Hello everybody, I'm Mike from Electric City Sentai Denzicaster, and welcome to Denzicaster Now. This episode, this go-round, we are starting a brand new Kamen Rider show. We are going to be checking out the first 4 episodes of Kamen Rider ZO, and that's how I'm going to pronounce it anyway. Kamen Rider ZO is the 20th Heisei era Kamen Rider. It will also be the final Heisei era Kamen Rider, as the Emperor of Japan is due to abdicate his throne in 2019. As he does, the Heisei era will come to an end, and his successor's era will begin. So this is the final Heisei Rider show, and they are kind of pulling out a lot of the stops, all the stops with it, as it coincides with the 20th anniversary of the Heisei Rider series. Well, the 20th series is not really the 20th anniversary, but anyway, that's not how math works. So we're going to take a look at the first 4 episodes today. As you know, I'm going to try not to go too deep into synopses and such. Go hit Wikipedia for that, or hit KamenRider.wikia, or something along those lines for sort of the blow-by-blow, episode-by-episode kind of deal. But we are going to take a look here at the first 4 episodes, and those episodes are, as I take a look here at my notes, those 4 episodes are Kingdom 2068, Episode 2, Best Match 2017, Episode 4, Dr. Gamer 2018, and Episode 4, No Continue 2016. Every episode ends with the year that the episode will primarily take place in. So, sort of the big picture, the high level idea of what is Kamen Rider ZO. Kamen Rider ZO centers around one young man who is destined in the year 2068 to be the Demon King. They call him Oma ZO and not Kamen Rider ZO in the future. And we actually start off with that look into a very bleak 2068 with presumably a much older Sogo Tokiwa as Oma ZO, and obliterating everyone that is around him, as it is his destiny to be king of the world. The interesting thing is we kick back from there to the fall of 2018, so present day, and we meet Sogo as a high school student. So he is still very innocent, bright-eyed, and bushy-tailed, as we say here in the United States. And even then, he dreams it is his goal in life to be king. So, a little bit of a ridiculous character on the surface of it as we kick things off. He is a bit of a throwback to the ridiculous riders of years past. So that sort of is what it is. He's a little more goofy, amusing, optimistic than Build. And I'm hoping that is not this show's greatest sin, is that it's following Kamen Rider Build, which I hold up right now as one of the greatest Heisei Kamen Rider series of all time. So, looking at the individual characters and whatnot, or actually the individual factions, that would be a better way of looking at it. We go throughout time and space throughout the course of the series. We are going to be encountering previous riders, presumably just the Heisei era riders, although I've seen rumor that they're, and stuff in various places, that we will see actually some of the Showa era riders as well over the course of the series. It gives it a bit of a Kamen Rider Decade vibe in that regard, and I see elements of what Decade could have been and what some of the rumored plans for Decade were on a very high level in ZO. One of the things that is a very definitive part of Decade is, at the very opening of episode 1, we see him fighting the previous Heisei era riders, so the previous 9 riders at his point. And effectively being referred to throughout the series as the destroyer of worlds, that he would kill and eradicate all of the Kamen Riders and so on. And we see that as he travels throughout the series, he gains the ability to transform into those riders, that those riders become his alternate forms in pretty much every way. But in this series, we don't get quite that same idea. We do get the idea that he is the Demon King, that Sogo is going to at some point rule the world as a tyrant in the year 2068, and that's just the way it is. We have three factions involved from pretty much this point forward. One faction is, I'll say led, but that probably isn't the best term, by guys who, it's pronounced in the show as Gates. And there have been some translations of it where they've referred to it as Gates, Kamen Rider Gates. But he is from the year 2068. He has come back in time with the intention, he and Tsukuyomi, to kill Sogo before he can ever become Zio. The idea is if we kill him before he becomes the Demon King, then the future doesn't happen the way it's meant to happen, so to speak. And so they are trying to avert the future, sort of a Terminator kind of vibe there going on. We have another character, Waz, who is there effectively to maintain the timeline. He is sort of the herald of Oma Zio, is the vibe you get. He shows up, he has a book called The Twilight Chronicle that has all these historical milestones in it. And when we see one of those historical milestones actually happen, he arrives and gives a proclamation of what we are watching. And it's very interesting. And you can see that he treats Zio with a degree of reverence, that this is my king. So he is there to see to it that what happened happens, and that the Demon King Zio comes to pass. Finally, we wind up with the Time Jackers, and the first one we meet is U-H-R, and the second one we meet is Aura. The Time Jackers are there effectively to create a new Demon King. The idea is they want to create another Demon King other than Sogo, for whatever their own purposes are. We do not know what those are as of yet. Interesting concept. But what they do is they go through and change history in the process. They effectively steal a rider's powers and corrupt them into a monstrous form, giving them to some other person, creating the another riders. The first one we see is Another Build, and then we see another one, Another Exade, which is going to be really interesting if they ever do Kamen Rider Agito and they get to Another Agito, because there's a character in that show called Another Agito. So if they do another version of him, I guess it's another Agito. Yeah, something like that. Anywho, hopefully they'll just dodge that one altogether. But it's an interesting concept that we have these three factions all fighting to create their version of the future from this supposedly proper timeline where Zio becomes the Demon King. He is referred to as the heir to the power of all riders. And it gives us another interesting thing, and we see them piece this together over the first 4 episodes. There are 0.5 episodes, sort of supplementary material episodes that do fall in between them. I watched the first 2 and have decided I'm not going to watch any of the rest of them until the show is over. Because, frankly, it was a little spoilery. it gives away certain concepts before the characters in the show figure out those concepts, and I didn't like that. For instance, there is a moment where they realize basically the rules of the world, and Build figures them out and passes the information along. Effectively, a writer's powers cannot exist. Two copies of the same writer's powers cannot exist at the same time in the same place. That is to say, when Kamen Rider Build, when those powers are stolen and another build is created, at that moment, another build is, for all intent and purpose, the Kamen Rider Build of history, and he replaces the Kamen Rider build that we all know. So he subverts that character's place in history. And so our hero loses all memory of ever having been that rider and loses those powers. Now they play a little fast and loose with the losing the memory part because it doesn't always seem to be immediate. And every time the another rider is destroyed, the original rider will regain his memories, but when the another rider is revived, because that happens in this show a lot, then those memories immediately dissipate. So it's strange. And we actually do see the legendary riders, as they're referred to in the show, the legend riders, as they transform to fight their another counterpart, we see their powers fail. Because they cannot coexist. The second rule is that the only way to defeat another rider is with the powers he stole. So in order to defeat another build, Zio has to use Build's powers. And that is, I guess, the reason he becomes the inheritor of the power of all riders, is because he's going to have to, over the course of the series, stop all of these another riders. And the vibe you're given at the end of these episodes, these first four, he winds up with the powers of Ex-Aid and Build, and it is very much played off as, no, these riders are surrendering their powers over to Zio. We are giving you these powers. Please carry on in our footsteps. It is very much the vibe that you get off of it, which is an interesting idea. And even after the another rider is destroyed, because they have passed this power over in the form of ride watches, they've passed this power over. They still can't transform. Those powers are now part of Zio, which, if Kamen Rider was really, really, really strict with continuity as a franchise, I could see that complicating reunion movies in the future. But I think it's perhaps it is sort of a intentional piece of business that the entire Heisei era of Kamen Rider will be contained within this one character by the time the series ends. That's sort of the vibe you get as we go through here. The characters themselves, Sogo is fairly stereotypical in the regard that he is the go get 'em guys heroic character. Guys is your typical Heisei era secondary writer, especially like from the early Heisei era where they're very antagonistic. I don't really know how I feel about I keep saying guys. If I say guys, I'm referring to that as his civilian form. Gates is the accepted pronunciation for his writer form. But Gates, I don't know how I feel about that in general. We do have Junichiro Tokiwa, or Takaiwa, who is, I'll be honest, I didn't quite get if it's supposed to be Sogo's father or his uncle or grandfather or what. I'm assuming it's his dad, who was played by one of my favorite actors, period, anywhere in the world. And that It delighted me no end when I saw him pop up in the show. But he is played by Kintaro. Nope, wrong guy. Where's his name on the list? There it is. Katsuhisa Namase. Katsuhisa Namase is about 58 years old at this point in time, but he is a tremendous actor. He's known for playing somewhat comedic authority figures over the years. I know him from Trick, which is a wonderful J-drama. Had 3 different series, I think, total. And he plays a cop in Trick, which is a show about a magician and an author who are out to debunk fake mystics and people like that. And then the other one is Gokusen. He is in the live-action Gokusen franchise, initially as the vice principal, but we see him go up the ranks as the series progresses. Somehow always winding up at whatever school the lead Yakuza princess turned school teacher winds up at. But just a tremendous actor. And so I'm really thrilled to see an actor of his caliber in this show. It's not very often that I see a J-drama actor that I recognize pop up in tokusatsu, but he's here, and that to me lends a lot of gravitas to this character. And he's got a little bit of a comedic tinge to him, but I'm hoping they let him be sort of the sage parental figure. Much like Kamen Rider Decade, the individual episodes sort of take on the flavor and feel and appearance of the shows they are tributing. So we get a little bit of build feel out of the build episode. We get a little bit of X8 feel out of the X8 episodes. I think right now I'm interested enough to keep watching because I love tribute shows, for one. I love anniversary series. But at least early on, it's feeling perhaps too much like Decade to me. The idea that our hero is destined to destroy everything. One thing that's definitely unlike Decade is he really is eliminating his predecessor writers as he goes along. He is assuming their powers. And so we're not going to have all of that, here come all the writers of the past to come help me thing, at least on the surface of it. I'm sure we'll get that, but on the surface of it, it doesn't seem that way. This is the first Kamen Rider show to feature mecha, which are realized completely CG, and I'm not 100% certain how I feel about it. The effect isn't bad, but beyond that, I'm not sure. I do really like the Zio and Guy's costumes themselves. Rather than transforming into their predecessor riders, which is worth noting that Gates actually has the ghost powers before the show ever starts. So I do kind of hope they go back to Ghost and explain that on some level. But instead of just transforming into their predecessors, they get ride armor that... basically, it's still that person, so it's still Zio, it's still Gates, but they take on this armored appearance of whoever their predecessor was. Think of it more of closer to the Legend Rider armors that you got in Gaim, and that would be in the Gaim movies. That would be a really good way of looking at it. So, yeah, overall. So far, interesting. I know episode 5 takes us back to one of my favorite Kamen Rider series, is Kamen Rider Forze. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and seeing how that works out. I will say this for the time travel. They're not playing overly fast and loose with it. They are making it a point to say you don't want to interfere with history too much, things like that. But one thing that I actually do find very interesting, and it's a very small point, but I want to give the show a lot of credit for doing this, and that is the ride watches. When they are presented to Zio, although I think the show actually pronounces it, I saw a pronunciation came in, I think it's pronounced Geo, Um, but when they're presented to him, um, he he is given them by his predecessor, but his predecessor doesn't even know what the hell it is. They just randomly have a ride watch with their powers in it. Um, we see Build and Cross Zed surrender their powers to him in episode 2. We see Xaid surrender his powers in episode 4. And they say, I don't know what this is. I don't know how I got it. I don't know where I got it from, but I always knew that when I found the guy that was supposed to have it, I would return it to him, kind of thing. But the last thing he does when he's in the original time frames, when he's in 2017 for Build or 2016 for Xaid, the very last thing he does is he gives the writers who have surrendered their powers to him, he hands them blank ride watches, which will, of course, somehow obtain the powers. But the show sort of realizes they have to get the watch somehow. So let's just have Zio give them the watches so that they can return them to him. Because if he doesn't do it, they don't have them to give him their powers. So I thought that was an interesting touch. Gates wants to kill him. Tsukuyomi is more of, maybe we can just... He's not a bad guy. Maybe we can guide him so he doesn't become the Demon King. So I enjoy both of those characters a lot, and I enjoy the direction they're taking, and that's sort of the route that they're all going with at the moment, which I'm cool with. I look forward to see where that goes. And in typical gee golly whiz guys hero fashion, Sogo even tells them at the end of episode 4, I trust you. I don't want to be the Demon King. I want to be king, but I don't want to be the Demon King. I don't want to be this overlord, this tyrant. So with your help, I think I can become king, but not become that king. But if you see that I am becoming the Demon King, if you see that I actually will become Oma Zio, kill me. Do what you came to do. Finish the job. I do not want to be that man. So, that's going to come back at some point in the series. So, overall, only thing I really didn't talk about is music. It's good. Nothing to write home about, but it's good. But yeah, overall, the first 4 episodes have got my attention. Now let's see if they keep my attention. We'll see. So, very excited for this new series of Kamen Rider. I'm going to be watching along, and I hope you guys do as well, wherever it is that you are able to stream your fan subs or obtain your fan subs from. Of course, we would love your support here at Geek Carolina. If you want to help us out here on the channel, you can do that by checking out the store links down below for Cafe Press and Redbubble. I suspect there'll be a Zio-themed shirt up there eventually. I really dug Build, so there wound up being 2 Build-themed shirts. If I really dig the show, I come up with a t-shirt for it, because I want a t-shirt. So, check it out. Hopefully you will like them too, and pick yourself up one. None of that lines our pockets, folks. It goes to help out the channel. We've got our eyes on some new microphones, actually, so that would be really cool. So do that. Find us on social media. We are on Tumblr. We are on Facebook, of course. We are on Twitter. We're on Periscope. We're on Instagram. We're at Geek Carolina at all those places. And find us and follow us on Twitch. We're not doing a heck of a lot over at twitch.tv at the moment. However, we do occasionally do live streams. We do them more for Rage Quit Radio, our tabletop gaming show. And we're actually going to be starting a Power Rangers SPD RPG next month right now, is the plan, called Delta Squad. I'm really looking forward to running that with the gang. And coming up, as you are seeing this, coming up Saturday at 12 noon is the plan. We're going to be doing a live stream, a Denzicaster live stream where you can watch along with us. And right now on the agenda, we're going to be watching some Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon. We're going to be watching some Live Man, and we're probably going to throw in, quite possibly, depending on who all is there, we may be throwing in some Jet Man as well. Don't hold me to the last one. But definitely there will be Sailor Moon, and there will definitely be some Live Man. And I'll tell you what, if there's something you guys want us to watch, give me an idea in the comments, and I'll check the comments, and if I've got it readily at hand or I can readily get it, maybe we'll throw that on. We'll watch that too. That'd be really cool. So let us know in the comments below. Until next time, folks, I'm Mike. Thank you for joining me this week, and we'll see you next time on Denzicaster Now.